Okay.
Did it come out of my head? Oh, okay. How did they use that? I'll see that. Oh, there it is. That's crazy. I'm a woman right now.
Or I should just. I don't have.
Is
a
this to keep
long
your battery?
cable. Yeah, I don't
Oh.
have a long cable.
Yeah, we could do this. Here.
Yeah, do it higher.
Oops. I don't know if I turned something.
Now it's yeah. This is the most piece of shit. Hi, how's it going?
All this fancy stuff.
Ramsey's here. I know, man. We get the whole thing, dude. I know, man. Is this still crooked? I guess it's okay.
Well, I guess let's tape this first, and then you can straighten it out. Or
High-tech duct tape.
Oh, you know, I may have something. No, you're gonna need to do more than that. Oh, maybe not.
Hey, sir. You're making a habit out of this.
Yes, yes.
I'm fine today. We gotta get something like
This is my first time. I connected to the organizers. Say hello. Collided. Collapsed into a black hole.
Yeah.
Nice. Have you spoken here before?
No, I help watch them. I help last guy.
Okay.
Means you do absolutely everything. You hang on your phone.
Thinking and everything. Amazing. Help we can. But go ahead.
If I use the megaphone, we're like not heard in the video.
Yeah, get into it. Yeah.
You met Laura before?
No, I'm not. August. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, she was very involved in Mindshare from the beginning.
Oh, awesome. I love my share.
She's an entrepreneur, has two companies. One is like a Comic-Con for Halloween in August. It's Girl A, and then another one is medical control testing.
The Comic-Con for what's it called?
Carolyn.
I have heard of it, but I haven't been to it.
No, you got to go.
Like a haunted
August.
or a haunted experience? Or
It's a lot. Getting, yeah, it's one of those experiences where actually there's a show for it. You want to buy stuff to like how to do
in October?
No, August.
Get ready for a couple months out.
Organizers on the book message from Facebook.
That's Zach and she's
I'll go say hello.
the others are not well today, not here right now.
Okay. Oh, I'll have it second. Only experiments for mine.
What are we doing with candles? Oh yeah. Eventually, it's kind of it's like a stock thing called Space VR. It's like a stock thing called Space VR. It's like you have certain reading spaces. Anybody can do this at any time. And I do this inside of 3 Like, tell
Trying.
them how'd that even happen?
And there's you want to read? You want to read and straighten out?
It looks like my head is saying yes.
Do you want to hear anything? What kind of?
Want an IPA?
Yeah. Can't bring him an idea.
She's gonna need valid. I asked what to get up there. Yes, it was. Yes.
Yeah, they're gonna take that polling data and get into entire calculation.
right up there. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm just like I'm not even like a super techy person, but I'm like so enthusiastic about this. I just keep coming back, and she told me it's gonna be the last one.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
But I'm sure like whatever she comes up with is gonna be like amazing.
Yeah, I know. We've been.
It's so fun.
Yeah,
It's creative. I love it.
It is. It is. It's funny because, like, yeah, we did it. We ended up doing a big stand-up.
Did you?
Yeah, and then we did it with. I did a lot of special effects on stage on Halloween.
Cool.
Ghosts and things and stuff.
So stand-up comedians, that's a really nice thing for them to have an outlet. 'Cause you
Yeah,
know,
and also people they do it all over the place and stuff.
Yeah, I didn't know that. Yeah,
Stand-up, I mean, they do stand-up.
yeah. Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's
and
what
you
it's-
know they need some type of exposure to help.
Exactly,
You know?
exactly. And it's also, you know, for us, a good learning experience, but, you know, we're still
How
learning
to-
with the camera and things.
So-
So it's good. Well,
You have a bunch.
but that's
It's not yours. This is the bartender's. I'll be back.
Yeah, you'll be fine. So are you working on anything? Or?
You know what I am working on something. This year I'm doing things that I've always wanted to do.
Good.
And that includes doing music. No, I'm not a musician. I've never done like this before. I've just wanted to do it. I've written out, like I write for fun.
Right.
Like I do all these things for fun that could qualify as something I could do career-wise. So I was like, you know what? I gotta do something with these. Like I write songs and I'm not giving them to
Right. So why not?
and so I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to try this. But I'm actually doing something that has to do with where we're headed in society, like the fabric of our society when it comes to where we're going in technology. So I wrote a script about it. This guy is supposedly going to be in mid-April. I say,
Supposedly, I know.
You know, it's LA, you know. But I've worked with him on something before. We did a music video before for him. I just written something, and then I'm like, he like just sometimes just bounce ideas off, and I'm like, well, I wrote this. I guess you know this could probably be a music video. So it's like short, and then he's like, oh yeah, there's this band that I can use this for because he's a photographer and director. And then I'm like, wait, don't you do music too? Another person that he goes computer cinematography, directing, and he plays. And I'm
So he has no
what?
talent.
You have no actual skill that can be used in like labor-based society. So I'm like, why don't we just use your music?
Right,
So
right.
we did that, and he got some actors. I wasn't in it. I didn't want to be in it. I just wanted it done, and it turned out so good. I love creativity.
Oh, good. Yeah,
I'm
it
such
is.
a child.
Yeah. That's why I love this stuff. It's so much
Yeah,
to play
I'm
with
such
and
a
explore.
child.
You
It's
know.
awesome. I'm like, you know what, this time, I'm not going to ask as many questions as I usually do. Because usually I ask, like last time I think I asked 7 questions. Like, well, no one else is going up there for
Well,
mine.
you know, you need to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I missed last week's.
UBI, was it UBI? It was UBI, right?
Yeah. We were
Was
supposed
last
to come.
month or last week?
No, last month.
Yeah, it was UBI.
Yeah, no, I know, I missed it. I had just come back from, I was in Grenada, and I was like, yeah, it was really nice. It was really,
You were
really
happy to get out of here?
Yeah.
What
Well,
was out there? What were you doing?
well, I'm from New York, and I go back and
Oh.
forth all the time.
Okay.
In fact, I'm going back on Wednesday, so I was, anyway, that's where everyone in New York wanted to go for vacation. And I was like, you know, I can't get there directly. You can't fly, in New York now, JetBlue flies directly to Grenada. Anyway.
Are you kidding me?
No.
You can't go from LAX to New York.
No, LAX to New York you can, not LAX to Grenada. You have to stop. You can't fly LAX. There's no direct flight from Los Angeles to Grenada. Oh.
You can train it, but that's going to take forever, right? Yeah.
Anyway, so.
Excuse me, Rachel. Do you know where I'm sort of sitting? Hi, I'm just paying for the drink. It's not a real.
Oh, no, it's okay. It's okay. Have your
I'm
moment.
vegan.
Oh, no, have your moment.
I'm shaky.
Have your moment. Everyone deserves their moment.
Yeah, no, sit
You know.
neat.
Nothing is all sunshine. Yeah.
The marquise. Oh, these are
Oh my
good.
God, I'm going to get those. Where'd you get those?
Push, around the corner and across the street.
Check, check, check. Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Yield Futurist Union. Do I have a motion from the audience to begin the debate? Okay. So we're going to go over a bit of the debating rules and how it works, so everybody's familiar with that. We also want to say hello to everybody out there in YouTube land and Altspace land. We've got Jonathan here manning the Altspace ether, and anybody that's in Altspace, we want to invite you to ask questions. So if you have any questions for the speakers, you're invited to do that. I want to give a big shout out to Angel City Brewery for hosting us. Tip the bartenders. And I also want to shout out to Hotbit VR. They're here shooting in 360 tonight. So thank you so much for coming, you guys. And Todd and Andrew and Jonathan are also here helping out with the tech, and I wanted to give a shout out to them. So there's a couple things you got on your way in. One was a voting piece. So if you leave early, which is fine if you need to leave, there's a plus and a minus tub out there. So if you want to vote in the affirmative, you put it in the plus, and that's there. There's also an art project where you get to design your own remote control. So you have that, and you also have a form to give us some comments. So you want to leave those all on your way out when you go. One of the things we're going to be doing with the Yield Futurist Union is we're going to be going on a hiatus, and there's a very special reason for that. I don't know if you guys know, but in the Iranian world, the first day of spring starts the beginning of the year, actually. It doesn't start in December. And so it's kind of a new beginning for us. Carrie, who is our illustrious floor leader, she ran the debate club out of Yale for many years with her husband, Neil. They have adopted a child, a special needs child from LA County. And the baby is 14 days old or so, and was up all night last night. So we're going to be joining together to create a community for them to help the baby and the condition that it has, and hope that everything goes really well. We're actually going to pass out, Andrew, if you could help us out. There's a sign up right here to help Carrie. If you live around the neighborhood and you want to help with a special needs kid, they're looking for meals or a dog walk. So we want to bring the community in on that. One of the other things that we wanted to do is we're going to be switching into YouTube mode for the Yield Futurist Union, and we want to get people to join that channel. So Andrew, can you also pass out that big beer mug? We want everybody to do some math. We counted the people here, and if everybody takes 5 pieces of paper and gets 5 people to join this channel, we won't have to pay for ads, we won't have to pull our hair out, we'll just divide the labor by the amount of people here. So we're doing a little hack, right? But one of the other things that, so we wanted to explain to you that the reason why we're doing Yield Futurist Union is this right here. Does anybody know what this is? It's a curve, a growth curve. An exponential. Yeah, why don't you tell us?
An exponential growth curve, as we heard from the audience.
Why this if you'll go together?
Well, the idea of an exponential growth curve is a curve that's increasing at an increasing rate. And that is what is happening across a wide range of technologies today. So it's, looking back at history, it seems rather linear. You know, it's a straight line. You can forecast in the future based on the rate of growth we've seen in the past. What's happening now is exponential growth is kicking in, and so the rate of growth is increasing at an increasing rate, and that compounds very quickly. And that means that when you're at the second dot on the curve, and you extrapolate the line forward linearly, you're missing the rate of growth. But not only that, each one is compounding on top of the other, so the line can get very steep very fast. And we're starting to see that kick in. And what that means is our assumptions on how fast growth and change is going to happen are off. And our instincts, our evolutionarily defined instincts on our expectations are off. And that we need to prepare for a kind of growth we just aren't able to really comprehend. And the discussions here are all about helping us understand what's happening, exchange ideas, and anticipate this rapid acceleration of growth.
That's right. So tonight's discussion is going to be on mind control, and to get us ready for tonight, August, I actually have a gift for you. Yeah. You know, conspiracy theorists believe that if you make yourself a tin hat, that nobody can read your thoughts. They can't scan your brain. They cannot, mind control will not happen. So this is a little protection. If anybody else needs a hat, we have some aluminum foil. And we actually have an extra one right here. So, there are some powerful mind controllers in the house tonight. Ramsey and Casey are here with us tonight for this important discussion. So, okay, so one last thing about where we're taking Yofu, and then we're going to get down to the debate at hand. So, we wanted to talk about all these things that were changing, and we felt like we don't really have time to research all the stuff that's happening in VR and mind control and all these things. So this was our excuse to read a couple articles each month, get some beer, and talk about it, and kind of dig in on that. So one of the things we're going to be doing next month and the next month and the next month is we're going to continue getting together here at Angel City Brewery on the other side, and we're going to talk about how we can take Yofu into other dimensions. That may be a YouTube channel that has 2 columns, so we can see the positive and the negative of different ideas. It might be a dinner series or a lunch series downtown where people can go, we have one topic and people get into it. It might be 360 videos of really talented people like Ramsey and Casey that are coming. And we just have 4 people. We do a really nice 360. So we're open to any ideas that you have, and we invite you to join us next month on the final Sunday for beer and discussion on the next generation of Yofu, which will start in the summer. So before further ado, let's introduce these incredible people that we have speaking today, and also explain the rules.
All right, so first off, for those who are new to the adventures here at Ye Olde Futurist Union, this is a debate society modeled after the Oxford Union. And so we start with a speaker in the affirmative, which will be Ramsey Brown tonight, who I will introduce momentarily. And then Casey McMahon will follow, speaking in the negative on the topic of mind control is good for you. And this is addressing the issues that have become extremely topical just this week. Social media, app addiction, our digital technologies manipulating us through dopamine hits and other types of mind control and behavioral control. So I know when Ramsey kicks it off, he'll help define what that all means. And we'll get deep into that.
Yeah, and we encourage you guys to hiss if you don't like what someone's saying, or go like this if you do like what someone's saying.
Yeah, so if you like it, just pound. Let's hear the tables. If you don't, express it.
And you're going to be invited to ask questions of Ramsey. And you'll also be invited to come up on stage. If you come up on stage for the first time, you get a limited edition badge, and you continue the conversation. When there's no more questions, no more speeches, we hammered in the gavel for Carrie, and we take a vote. So, without further ado.
All right, so we're going to introduce Ramsey Brown, our first speaker in the affirmative. Ramsey is a neuroscientist and a software entrepreneur, the COO of a company that was until recently called Dopamine Labs and is now called, Boundless Minds. Boundless Minds is the new renaming of the former Dopamine Labs. And this is a company, I'll let you get into it if you want to to the extent it informs, but it's a company that both helps people break app addictions and helps companies form addictive behavior through apps and software technology. Ramsey is a neuroscientist from USC's Brain Architecture Lab, which is one of the forefront institutions studying neuroscience in software. So please welcome Ramsey Brown.
Awesome. Thank you, August. Thank you, Zenka, for throwing this all together. As I said, I'm Ramsey Brown. I'm the founder and head of operations at Boundless Mind, and we're leading the edge on using persuasive artificial intelligence to help people beat app addiction and encourage human flourishing. And tonight, we're going to be talking about mind control. To talk about mind control and the case why it's good for you, I'm going to ask you to do a little bit of time travel with me. We're going to go back to the year, let's pick it, 1905. If we were in Los Angeles in 1905, or for that matter, New York, London, Berlin, Chicago, any sufficiently advanced, burgeoning industrial city, most people in this room who might die this year will die of infectious disease. You will die of tuberculosis. You will die of pneumonia, cholera, fevers of all shapes and colors. You will die of flu. These things are in the environment around you. They're in the water, they're in the air, and there's little you can do to escape the fate. And it was only once we developed a really rigorous technology of the body, manifest as what we normally now call modern medicine, sanitation, vaccination, sterilizing our food and our water supplies, that we saw in the course of just decades a drastic improvement in quality of life. We saw a decrease in infant mortality rates. We saw an extension of life expectancy. We bravely pushed back against otherwise traditional norms of the sanctity or specialness of the body and its place in the divine to actually ameliorate human suffering. And this did not come without its backlash. This was widely unpopular for a while, considered heretical for some time, but it worked. Today, fast forward to 2018, everyone in this room is largely predicted to die of ennui and cheeseburgers. You will die of type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, COPD from smoking, stroke, obesity, stress-related illness, anxiety, and suicide. These are diseases of behavior. These are diseases that should you go speak to a physician, the first thing they will tell you is you need to change how you're behaving. These are not diseases of environmental scourge, these are diseases of the brainstem. They're the consequence of our brain evolving through mammalian history in a very scarce world where your next meal was uncertain and flinching at the first sound meant you survived. That's not what we live in anymore. By and large, with increasing spread throughout the whole world, we're living overwhelmingly in abundance, including in the emerging world, where the fastest growing type 2 diabetes rate is in South India. We now live in an excess of kilobytes, kilowatts, and kilocalories that are very, very cheap. But your brain is still wired for scarcity. To survive post-scarcity, a very capital F futurist proposal, my team and I believe we actually do need a rigorous technology of behavior. Understanding how a system works, like the nervous system, grants us affordances to change how that system works. It grants us new levers to pull, new buttons to push, and new ways to transform how we're acting into how we would aspire to be, to close that gap. Already my team and I have shown our technology of using positive reinforcement aligned with human flourishing has helped people beat type 2 diabetes, has helped them pay down their debt faster, has helped them walk more after surgery, has helped them beat cyberbullying. And I think that when well aligned in a transparent, ethical, pro-social framework, we have very little room to not openly embrace a technology behavior. Because, as students of history, we ought recall that because we do not like a tool does not mean it is going away. If it is still useful to people, it will be used. We cannot just turn back from using a technique. Which means that those who will use it now to dismantle freedom, to distract our children, and to exchange our eyeball hours for brand loyalty via cat videos are not going to walk away from it either, and that sucks. But we all get a choice, especially for people who build technologies, to be able to inclusively and democratically spread these understandings of how human behavior works and what the affordances are to change it means that we all now get a say in becoming the designers of our own minds. A future of mind control is not a centralized mind control, and it is not a mind control as to suppress the human condition. Rather, it is a way to promote human flourishing. It is a way to take back your brainstem for yourself. And I believe that doing this safely, accountably, transparently is our only route forward. So I resolve that mind control is good for you. Thank you.
That's fantastic. So Ramsey, so we see these technologies being used for so much ill. How do we align incentives and shape a society where these technologies are used for the advantages you've outlined?
Who has Facebook on their phone? Who's received a notification from it today? Okay. Facebook does not make money from you. Facebook makes money from Coca-Cola. You are the thing being sold to Coca-Cola. You are the product being sold on Facebook. If we're interested in using these techniques beyond just switching your eyeball hours for brand loyalty, we need better transparency about how these techniques are being used. We need more public awareness in the same way that there was this revolution in media literacy about 20 years ago where people understood that advertisements were designed to persuade them. We too need now a neuroliterate society where people can understand how technology is being built to explicitly shape their behavior so they can identify when it's happening, and you know how to disarm it or how to lean into it, because not all shaping is bad. If it's well aligned with what you want out of your life, it can be outstanding. And we need to put pressure on these technology companies to adopt revenue models that are not attention-based. Who here would pay $5 a month for Facebook? What about $2 a month? Yeah, I'd pay about $2 a month for it. I'd pay $10 a month for Spotify. And Spotify doesn't have to employ these types of techniques because they get my money regardless of how many songs I listen to. If you go to the gym does not care if you went once or 365 times. They get your monthly money. Putting pressure on these companies to adopt revenue models that don't have to be exchanged for eyeball hours, I think is the first good step to kind of reforming these and taking them out of just the purview of exchanging human attention for brand loyalty.
All right, let's go to questions from the audience. Who has questions for Ramsey? Walk up to the microphone.
Yeah, Andrew will help you get the mic.
Andrew will take it to you.
Hi. What's your name?
Lacal.
What's your question, Lacal?
How do you hold investors accountable to this behavior shift for revenue models? Because even if you have subscriptions, there's still the ROI that the investors need, and they still want their money.
Yeah, so Boundless Mind is venture-backed, and I've had a lot of conversation with our financiers about what has to change in the greater VC community. When venture capitalists go raise the money they'll eventually give to founders, they raise it from limited liability partners, people like private wealth funds, private equity companies, sovereign wealth funds, who have maturity dates on their money. They understand that they've raised $1 billion and they need to return some sort of money on it in the course of maybe 2 to 4 years. They chop it up, they hand it out to VC, VC chops it again, they hand it up to founders, founders build Snapchat. What needs to happen is from the top down, we need to find ways that those from whom venture capital raises its money can accept 5, 10, 15, 20-year maturities on their return, which is going to then place less downward pressure on VCs to make decisions that will have a 2-year return, which places less pressure on founders just to get to a million active users and then monetize through advertisements. So I think you have to start at the top, figure out how do we better align more long-term return types of investment streams, or discourage those that need a 2-year return from looking at venture capital as a quick way to do that. Because if you just treat venture capital as another investment vehicle, same as maybe anything else you'd invest in if you've got $1 billion to blow, you end up creating really, really weird societies out of that. Because venture capital is what funds then the boundary conditions of the human experience in digital contexts. So, yeah, of course, I can hear you.
So 30% of founders are usually at the end.
So they say usually once venture capital is in, only 30% of the original founders remain in the corporation over a long period of time. So how do founders then protect themselves and the integrity and ethics of maybe investors that initially have interest aligned, but later down actually squeeze them out?
This is exactly what a board of directors is for. So it's a really great question. If you're a founder and there's a chance that you're going to be shut out or have to leave at one point, how do you protect these incentive alignments? And the answer is with a really great board of directors, who also, as directors, have the ability beyond the founding team to push back against investors and direct the future of the company. We were fortunate to bring on a man named Dr. Howard Morgan, who is investing solely for or joined the board and invested solely for the purpose of helping us remain ethically aligned against future board members and investors, because he has grandkids and he doesn't want them to live in a shitty world. By finding investors and board members who are willing to take a more pro-social or a more humane stance to the incentives the founders might be under, or the companies under as founders leaves, at least starts shoring up against what happens when otherwise humanitarian founders get pushed out. Just make sure the board of directors still is largely composed of people who understand pro-social good and social entrepreneurship.
Hey, we got an online question.
Okay, great. You guys
Cool.
have a question from outspace.
I can just say.
Oh, Todd. Can you raise his microphone?
Arcady wants to know, do you think we can reduce crime to zero with the use of BCI?
Do I think we can, hello? Okay. Do I think we can reduce crime to zero with the use of BCI? For those who are familiar, BCI is brain-computer interface. This is the idea that you can drop electrodes or a series of thousands of electrodes directly into neural tissue, and presumably the implicature here is drive electricity into electrodes to cause different neural firing patterns that would lend to different thoughts, feelings, emotions, and behaviors that would eradicate crime. No, I don't think so. And I think the use of BCI towards that would be radically poorly aligned because it would trample deeply on the notions of freedom and dignity. One of my favorite things about behavioral design and the type of things my company works on is that they provide cognitive paths of least resistance for particular behaviors, but they don't use force or coercion to go about changing behavior, which I think is a distinction that needs to be maintained. If you would like to make it more likely someone goes for a run, that's fine. If you would like to make it more likely that someone comes back and checks Facebook, that's kind of shitty, but at least it's not coercion. If you'd like to implant electrodes in someone's brain to make sure they didn't commit crime, you've robbed them of fundamental human dignity and freedom. And I think that's a line we actually ought not cross for obvious ethics concerns, but also that it would represent almost a perfect flattening and mechanization of the human condition. Even if there is a benefit to having less crime, I'm willing to bet my hat we can get there without forcing coercion through neural interfaces.
So I understand how this could be good in terms of changing habits to extend our life and everything like that. But as we're online and we're online for these short seconds, what about the psychological portion of it? So someone taking advantage of my psychological profile of fears or this or that to get me to act in a certain way that makes me kind of like a monkey because I don't really understand. I'm just emotionally reacting to what you're giving me, and I'm gonna press that or vote that way or do what you know.
Right, so this is largely related into what's been revealed this week about Cambridge Analytica and the quantity of user data they were able to, not illegally, but very poorly ethically gain, and the amount of control they were able to influence. For those who are coming up on speed on this, Cambridge Analytica was a predictive analytics firm that participated heavily in helping the Trump campaign this past election by not entirely ethical means collecting psychographic and behaviorographic data from upwards of 50 million people on Facebook, and then using that not only to train their artificial intelligence systems, but then push back against those people as to sway public opinion through the creation of completely spurious advertisements, news stories, just designed to sway their opinion and create deepened racial division and cultural division in America. The ethics of that are pretty cut and dry for my team and I. We're writing an article about this right now about how completely batshit unethical that procedure was, for 3 good reasons that it failed our sniff test. It was completely done in the dark. You, as someone who downloaded their personality survey game, had no idea that you were agreeing legally to then fork over all of your data, all of your friends' data, and then be shown advertisements that would later make you more divisive of a person. So it was totally done in the dark. And it was poorly aligned with those people's best interests. So when one thinks about why we vote and how we vote, about building better worlds and better communities, there were many people who were swayed to vote in ways that actively undermined their own best interests for narrow political gain. So it was poorly aligned with what people wanted. It was completely happening in the dark, and it was poorly aligned with what actually would have been good for them. So when we think about those things, these are definitely uses of behavioral design and persuasive automation, but used towards what we really do as a field need to point to and say completely shitty reasons and in completely ethically unaligned ways. So we can't stand by that, we need to speak out against it.
That's really cool that you guys are developing that kind of a matrix, that checklist, because that could be something that we could, as a community, crowd like police or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, we've got a lot of people, and people can flag it and say, like, wait a minute, is this in my best interest? Is this in their
And this is the whole point. In the same way that we have a generation of people raised now with the idea that when they look at an advertisement, they kind of get what's going on. Oh, you're trying to fucking sell me something. We will soon have a generation of people completely equipped to understand when they go in to use a digital product that this thing has been explicitly designed to shape their behavior. This has been explicitly designed to change how they think and what they think and why they think it using advanced techniques. And that's not right or wrong, but at least then it makes them wary. They're able to kind of understand what's going on and then respond to it appropriately.
So if I'm understanding correctly, that you're thinking that X amount is predictable behavior in order to shape behavior?
Can you repeat that one more time?
What amount is predictable behavior? In order to shape behavior, you have to be able to predict behavior. Correct?
In order to shape behavior, you have to be able to, yes, you need at least a predictive model. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So what % would you say we can predict, and what kind of behaviors can we predict?
Awesome. Has anyone read Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman?
Me?
This guy's done his reading. You've done your reading. It turns out the majority of our behavior is mostly autopilot. From when you wake up to when you go to bed, the majority of little things you do without even realizing it, you do more or less automatically, and you learn those automatic behaviors from environmental cues, from reinforcement. It turns out that a very small amount of who you are and what you do is super intentional, and that's probably good. This is a brain's coping mechanism for the fact that there's more information flooding at me right now than I could ever hope to attend to, so I largely black box most of it and focus on speaking. But when you're on the road, you don't really think about shifting lanes, you just do it well. You don't really think about how much pressure to apply to the brakes, you just do it. When you get up in the morning, you have a route you're going to take, a coffee you're going to buy, a first website you're going to log into when you open your computer, a beer you're going to drink at the end of the day, and these things are largely automatic. It turns out, as Kahneman proposed, that's what's going on in the brain. Most of what we do follows that kind of pattern, which then frees us up to think about something interesting while on the road, or be our more contemplative, better selves when we get the chance. But yeah, to answer your question, most of it, and it's crazy. Because you think of yourself as like a very deliberate person. We're not deliberate people. We're mostly like automatic machines.
To what degree will we be setting ourselves up for sort of a human dog breeding of the mind versus a social Darwinism by having this kind of mind control?
Can you specify narrowly how you mean to use each of those terms, human dog breeding and social Darwinism?
Well, dogs are, purebred dogs are bred for behaviors and looks. Versus what I mean by Darwinistic is what is successful in a real world application would be encouraged to reproduce and be furthered.
Cool. So I think the best way to think about most of these techniques are things like radical extensions of parenting. Our behavior is emergent from our genetics and our environment, and your environment largely is shaped in the first few years of your life as to build the proclivities, habits, opinions, beliefs you will hold later in your life. if you think about the relationship you have with your smartphone as an extended parent that's training you to become this person, then this becomes less about controlling the direction of culture and more about continuing to shape us into someone we're becoming. What you're pointing to, though, is happening at scale, though, it becomes a culture question. So to the extent that this is either about something closer to like cognitive eugenics or social Darwinism, to the extent that it can be used as a cultural tool, I think we get to split the difference neatly. We have a culture that we would aspire to. We hold cultural norms about the rights of all people, about what qualifies as a good life, about how we should interact with ourselves.
I'm frightened by what the majority voted into office.
Yeah, don't get me wrong, it's freaky as heck. But they also represent a,
or at least the gerrymandered majority.
sure, and you know, I'm no political scientist here, but with my best philosopher hat on, they represent a reactionary movement for being dissatisfied with globalization and the displacement of communities and ideals and the drastic shift of norms into the cosmopolitan cultural core as opposed to the rural core. So they're rightfully upset. That doesn't mean that their beliefs are going to reflect a changing world, and I'm going to not turn this into a political papal moment here, but when I think about what these techniques could be used for, being very, very transparent about them, being really clear about what's going on and why we want them and what we're going to do with them makes me less freaked out about any one group grabbing them and running away with them. So it still would have to be under evolutionary constraint. It would still be subject to everyone saying, yes, we do want this or don't.
So we should be moving towards a sort of mind control bill of rights, maybe.
Yeah, that's one of the things that my team and I have been thinking through is what does it look like to have a baseline ethics that people in the community who do behavioral design can ascribe to? What does it look like to have the equivalent of a movie score rating of PG, PG-13, rated R about the apps on your phone and how they change your mind and your behavior? These are thoughts that we've been developing and ground that we're trying to break, because the faster we do it, the better this gets for all of us, because this no longer needs to be a thing that happens in the shadows. This can actually be really transparent tools that we can start teaching in universities, that we can start teaching at code academies and things like this about the new norm of design, as opposed to these things that only happen in the back offices of Facebook and Instagram. Any other questions? Because I've been up here way too long. I need another beer.
I got one.
I like your hat.
Yeah, that was incredible, Ramsey. We're lucky to have such a leader here in Los Angeles. And it seems like this idea of conscious capitalism is like happening in you, and it's happening in the millennials, and it's so refreshing and so exciting. I'm glad you've embedded your optimism into your way of living in your business. It's very cool. Yeah, we look forward to following the path of how we navigate this stuff and how we set up structures and how we talk to other people developing persuasive technology. Very cool. Here's your. Okay, so now we have the other side of the coin, where there's a lot of, that's the optimistic view, and now we have another view. Casey's gonna come up tonight to talk. She's someone that questions things. She's an artist. She works in technology. She spent the last, how many months? 6 months, 8 months working on an app? About a year working on an app for young women, helping to deprogram some of these things that society have told us to believe about ourselves. And she's gonna bring up the other side of the argument. Again, she's a free thinker. She's an incredible artist that's using technology and merging some of our greatest desires. So come on up, Casey. Welcome.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. Just this. I'll start with, it's difficult to get a man to understand something when his salary depends on not understanding that particular thing. And Upton Sinclair said that, my name is Casey and I'm just here for the punch. So anyway, I think really when you talk about mind control, it's such a slippery slope. dealing with and seeing the repercussions of things that people, I don't think, envisioned happening with social media and the beginning of the internet. I've been involved in tech for 20 plus years, dating myself here, but it's, you know, in the mid-90s, the internet itself held this promise of really wonderful connection. You know, it was going to be this thing that brought us together, and it certainly did, but it also became a white noise generating advertising engine. And I don't, I never thought of it that way. I was so excited about being able to use it. And so no matter how altruistic the beginnings of a project or a product, it's really important to realize that the systems we're participating in are profit-driven and very easily manipulated. The entire system is vulnerable to manipulation. We're seeing it now across the board. Like, our democracy itself is basically in the hands of very unkind people. And it's terrible. And that boils down to, as humans, we're so easy to hook. As Zenka mentioned, I spent the last year working on an app, and I actually left because as wonderful as what we were building seemed, a lot of the meetings that were happening behind the scenes for the design itself were about getting people on the screen more. And regardless of how wonderful what we were doing in general seemed, it was an investment. And you know, the CEO was raising money, and so she was answering to someone for all of those dollars. And I think every conversation that's happening in Silicon Valley right now is answering to a profit-driven mechanism. It's people's job to persuade and hook us with these subversive hacks, and I don't like it a bit. I don't like it a bit. Anyway, I won't talk much about the app, but I can talk about the process. That anyone designing a product has a very specific goal in mind, and that's to capture and hold your attention. We're living in an attention economy, basically. Attention is a commodity, and our psychological instincts are being seduced, and people are using outrage and urgency to gain money and more screen time, really. I have to question what the ethics of that are. I don't know. It's wrong. It's wrong on so many levels. It's a zero-sum race for finite attention, really. And as with anything, I really think you need to ask, who's behind it? Follow the path of where is this going? Who benefits from it? And you know, every time that you scroll your phone, it's like a slot machine, basically. And you know, it really is designed that way, so that if you're checking your email 150 times a day, which a lot of us are, you know, that I think that is actually the average. We're playing into that machine. Basically, there are about 50 people in Silicon Valley designing for $2 billion now, and it's such a fascinating statistic, particularly when you realize that those 50 people are in essence a community. And so who are they designing for, and what lives have they lived, really? I want really, really deep thinkers thinking about what this is going to do down the line. You know, 50 years out, what is this going to look like? And you touched on that a bit, Ramsey. You know, the work that you're doing sounds like it's going in that direction. But I do have to wonder the demographic of who's doing that. You fit that particular demographic. You know, you are that. So how many people with different views are you bringing in? How, you know, what? I don't know. Sorry, I lost track. So sometimes I wonder if we're active participants in the biological influence of tech itself, in evolution as it evolves. So are we just cogs in this machine is technology using us as participants to just do its job. It's growing, we're feeding it, and it's on its own. You know, this is a road that we have very little control over. So in that regard, I do think looking at the ethics behind it is incredibly important. Our media and devices are steering 2 billion people's thoughts every day. It's AI-driven, personalized social control. And that's a really slippery slope there, because it is personalized. You know, newspapers, when you used to pick up the newspaper 20 years ago, it didn't follow your activity. So you weren't, you know, it wasn't tracking you, it wasn't trying to hold you and bring you back for more. It was just a paper. It was just spreading the news, not trying to keep you there. So AI itself is indifferent, where I think many humans are not. You know, we are driven by very different needs, very different wants, driven by power, driven by cash, driven by altruism, whatever it may be. We're all classified differently. I don't think AI itself is the problem. It's only as good as the people programming it. So what's going into that, and how do we correctly use it? Because as you said, Ramsey, it's not going away. So how do we frame it? So we're a captive audience, and tech companies have really enabled a direct channel to manipulate society. The CEO of Netflix, in fact, said that his biggest competitors are YouTube, Facebook, and people sleeping. So that really made me laugh. I think we really have the illusion of free choice. Our devices are framing our experiences, and they're hijacking the way that we perceive choice. So no matter how altruistic, when competing for attention, it's a classic race to the bottom. They're targeting our innate reactions, sort of the lizard brain, the bottom of the brainstem, and basically for more clicks and screen time. You know, how the more nervous you can make someone, the more emotional you can make someone, the more they feel like they're missing out. That's what people are actively trying to do to hook you in to pick up your phone again. I really think we need to establish boundaries and good practice. Yes, but we're very wrapped in this system at this point, and it's very hard to see the water that you swim in. So I don't know how objective even I am, because I'm in this matrix as much as anyone else. You know, every time I pick up my phone, I'm a part of this soft matrix, basically, that we're living in. It's moving very quickly. It's moving certainly a lot quicker than the printing press. I think, you know, every new technology always has its naysayers, and the way that I think this is different is that it's actually appealing to our need for social gratification more so than a book would. You know, it's hooking us in a way that that something that's more static wouldn't. So we're getting hooked in different ways, for lack of a better word. Basically, there's no shortage of good intent here. I think that most of us understand that there are a lot of good people trying to build these systems, but there's also a lot of dark, for lack of a better word, that I think it's really important to acknowledge, and it's a tool that is made to wrap you in it and for you to not be aware of that. So the incremental nature of persuasive technology is really too powerful to ignore. Do I think mind control is good? I don't want my mind controlled. I like to think I have free will, but I don't know if I even do. So basically, I think we really should tread carefully. These are uncharted waters, and our humanity is at stake. Thank you.
so that your work is absent of persuasion?
As an artist, how do you make sure your work is absent of persuasion?
I don't think anything's absent of persuasion. You know, it's nice to feel like we're objective, but I think we're a product of everything that we intake. You know, let's see you. No, yeah, I don't think it's absent. I think the art is essentially a product of everything you've ever looked at, right? Yeah.
And the scale's different.
And pardon?
And the scale's different.
True.
Yeah. At least right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say it's not.
Who else has questions for Carrie?
Hi.
Hi.
Who knew you were going to give such a great speech? Not saying that you wouldn't, but we know each other. So would you advocate, just like in school where they have classes that warn you against drugs, or you pick up a pack of cigarettes and they have the tiny label at the bottom, would you advocate something like that for certain technologies?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's certainly a step in the right direction, where you have a heightened awareness of what's going on.
Do you think an education should be given about, I mean, since it's proven to be such a powerful tool, I mean, in politics, I mean, this is a huge subject, do you think this would be something that should a bill be made? Like, should this be in our education?
Right. I think it should, and I think it probably will. I think we're going in that direction. I mean, certainly with all of the rumbles in the last few weeks, there's an awareness of these contraptions behind the scenes, where I think a lot of all people have been doing is clicking and becoming more socially bound to these apps, you know. And with awareness comes responsibility and also, you know, a dedication to fixing it.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, sure.
Do you see a role for government regulation? Is that a potential solution?
It's potential, but I don't know how. Right. You know, how good is government at regulating something like this? You know, you're right. It's.
Well, you can't advertise like alcohol to kids.
Right.
There's certain things you can.
There's certain things you can. Yeah.
I mean, maybe doing an age limit at the start of something.
Right. I would say you'd have to follow the power chain. Who's gaining from what message, and you know, how is that message relayed, and is it going to benefit X company, or is it actually truly for the better good, and who is the better good for? You know, they're very big questions that, when you're dealing with technology that touches so many people, it's important to look at how this filters out consistently, and realize that the power of a very simple phone app, like something like Musical.ly that was developed for children, that is, you know, so many kids right now are lip syncing to videos, and that's how they spend their time. Some would argue that that's okay, but you know, the amount of distraction we're capable of is astounding. You know, there's no shortage of things we can distract ourselves with. So I don't know.
But I guess that ties into what she was saying. If you educated kids,
right.
By the way, this is how things are built.
Right.
I mean, I learned in school about advertising, like, you know, TV, X amount is trying to sell you, you know, sugar cereals. Like, we did that in school, and that's kind of what she was saying.
It could almost be like the little triangle that tells you how many vegetables to eat, and
That's a lot.
Is it like, yeah. It might be something along that, but it could be, yeah. Yes?
Beyond regulation, whether that's within the industry or within the state, and I'm not asking for the 60-year roadmap, but from what you've seen, and as a philosopher, what would you think would be another small step that could be taken in the right direction here, given that these will be developed, these are being deployed right now? Aside from regulation, what would be one small thing you'd want to see happen that would make you feel like we're being appropriately cautious here?
I think the global awareness of it right now is a step. Like you're going to see a large amount of people stepping off of these social systems right now. Like Facebook is, it's becoming the elephant in the room, you know, where it's not only when someone realizes it's something that they're addicted to something, that's the first step in being able to understand the ability to get away from that thing. So talking more about the problematic nature of this, I think having people educated about the problems that are coming down the pipe, and you know, being able to really have deeper conversations about what's going on, what would help it, what would change it, and then I don't know, even what if we have National Turn Off Your Phone Day? You know, something, you know, getting people aware of the fact that they are addicted to these devices, that these are the slot machines of our generation, that we're playing into these systems. I think it would be a really nice start. Yeah, I'd say public awareness, for lack of,
We got another one from Altspace, and it's what advice would you give to an individual? Excuse me. What advice would you give to individuals who opt into tailored media?
Who opt into
tailored media?
Tailored media. Okay.
What's tailored media?
Tailored is that okay? I'm going to imagine that tailored media would be an app or something that they opted into a design system. Opting in is your choice, but please understand that everything you opt into, the job of the designer behind that is to hook you. And the job of the company who is behind the app, who is trying to swipe your attention, their job is to keep you on that screen for as long as possible, because that's what their business depends on. So when you look at it that way, and when you realize that time is precious and your focus is precious, I feel like the most important thing that we have is our focus and is our attention. And are we capable of splitting it into thousands of pieces like we are every day? We're capable of it, but are we productive? Are we good? Are we doing our best in that way? I don't know. Yeah, the best thing that you can do if you opt in is just realize that you're kind of being gamed. Even if it's a fun game, if you enjoy it, awesome, keep doing it, you know. But if you value your time and you'd like to spend it somewhere else, just realize what's happening. That's all. Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah. Hi.
So I'm kind of struggling with the idea that like placing labels on things like apps or technology really solves problems. I mean, as human beings, I think the radio was addictive at some point, so was television, so were probably newspapers, as well as sugar, and pretty much anything. I mean, people get addicted to coffee enemas, sorry, that's a thing. I saw it on reality television show. So ultimately, I guess, for me, the kind of curiosity comes is it really a matter of us being aware of something specifically addicting us, or is something more fundamental missing that allows us to get kind of hooked or redirected or hijacked by anything, which could also be our family's pressure, you know, and kind of our close circles. It could be anything outside of us that influences who we are and how we act. So one thing that kind of I'm struggling with is like, really, is this the matter of a technological issue and an intent issue, or is this really a deeper issue of the fact that we have disconnected with our authentic self? And really we've lost an ability to understand what drives us. Are we making decisions based on fear, based on automatic response, based on anything else? So that's kind of my...
Well, yeah, you know, we're very malleable creatures, and I think, you know, no matter how smart we think we are, we're still really driven by base instincts. You know, fear-driven, sexually driven. You know, these are very real notions that guide every part of human behavior. So, is an app the first thing to target those emotions? No, absolutely not. But it also, I think apps and technology in general are one of the first things to target and use your own data to keep hooking you back and like AI's job right now is to use what they know about you so that you continue in that loop. And that's something that a book doesn't do. You know, that's something that maybe parents do, but you know, or your family because they know you. But you're talking about these larger AIs that are created to know exactly what's going to harm or give you joy, or you know, that what's going to keep you coming back for more, what's going to keep you questioning. What is it that you've been tagged on Facebook? Like, I think when anyone or everyone gets that particular message, of course you immediately go to the interface and you end up spending 20 minutes there. So it appeals to that base, like, oh my God, I hope I look okay in that picture. Who was it with? Where was that from? Blah, blah, blah. You know, it really targets all of the very base level social instincts that we have. So is a label enough? No, I don't know. But I don't know that I don't know that there's any stopping this. You know, so at least labeling it, at least being aware of it, and creating systems that will allow us to control the ethics of it, I guess.
This was such an interesting discussion. So we want to open up to any audience member who has not been able to speak before we vote. If anybody has an idea, if anybody has, okay, Andrew, awesome. Are you going to be speaking in favor or against the resolution? Is mind control good for us, or is it bad for us?
It will be against with the caveat.
Against. Okay, I could speak for and against. So, is anybody else? Okay, I'm going to go ahead then and speak on the other side so we have a balanced discussion. And once I speak and you speak, then maybe we'll do a vote if there's nothing else. So one of the things I want to hone in on what Ramsey said is there is no turning back. There is no turning back. So mind control better be good for us because this is what we have in front of us. And I believe that if you look at technology and its trends, we're taking the power away from this triangular idea where one person is telling everybody what to think and do, to the crowd at the bottom. The base now has the power. Apps and entrepreneurs are saying, what do you want? What do you want? What do you want? Let's tell them what we want. And let's speak from our hearts. You know, I wore this heart tonight because we're talking about all this neuroscience, but there's this other organ in our body that has a ton of neurons, and it happens to be our heart. And our heart is not being spoken to right now. You know what I mean? This world that we're living in right now is extremely logical, and we're about to balance this out with our hopes and dreams, which is in our heart. We need to be creating the world based on what we really want and what we really hope that can be. And one of the things, Ramsey, you asked, like, well, Casey, what would you put? You're like, what would you do? The first step is we need to say, Facebook, give us our data back. I want my personal data back, Google. I want to see how long I'm sitting in front of the computer. I want to see how much I walked. I want to see what I looked at. I want to get to know myself so that I can get to that point where Ramsey said we can architect our own bodies, our own neurological understanding of the world. But you got to give me the keys. And I can't make any decisions until I have all the information. So what I advocate is a system where I get all my information back, and I can also see the whole. I can see Los Angeles and I can see the world. So we can drive this ship together. We're all captains. We're all in this together. And what's interesting is that we're smart. So we need to drive the boat too. And I think that we're entering a phase. So as much of this technology that we can drive. The other thing we need to do is we need to make advertising about what our hearts desire. I mean, we haven't talked about advertising because we've talked about how AI can manipulate apps, but advertising every day is telling you what you want. And the younger generations, as Ramsey said, you cannot give them fake advertisements because they're like, whatever, you're selling me something, I'm not listening. So already we're moving in the right direction, but I hope that we can create an ad agency of everyday people that sell the ideas that we care about. Because if they don't exist, if they're not visible, it's the whole problem that women had. You know, we didn't have any examples like, I can do that, really? I can run a company, I can do that. Like, we need to put out the ideas of what we want. We need to advertise our values, and we need to do it just alongside advertisers. So we need to pull that back, but that's, yeah. So mind control is good for us. Let's get in the driver's seat and let's do this. All these people at Facebook, they're our friends. They work at Facebook. Like, let's tell them what we want. Okay, we welcome Andrew to the stage.
Thank you very much. Thank you for organizing and bringing us all together. I think something lost in tonight's discussion is the role of television. The Trump now regime received, by estimates, $2 billion in free airtime during the primaries, and this allowed him to annihilate his Republican competition and move on. And this is because he gave CNN, which, you know, in an ideal situation, journalists would be the guardians of a democracy, but they just went for the ratings. So it was actually, I think, TV more than apps that enabled this regime to ascend. And furthermore, when Obama won, he was praised for being social media savvy, and that implies using these same techniques. That implies the same type of targeted marketing and all of that. But it's the fact that our Facebook has suddenly led the ascension of a race-baiting game show host to become our emperor that now we're trying to consider this. And so that takes me to the next point, that this is a tool. Technology is a tool, and a whip is a whip. When you're using a whip, its only purpose is to coerce. If you have kind of stipulations on I'll only whip on Fridays or what, it doesn't matter. That's the intrinsic value of the thing, and that's the same reason if Hillary had won, none of you would have considered the problem of nuclear weapons. It just had always been that way. So I think at the root of this is the situation that we were all fine being consumers. We were happy to give our data away as long as we were getting the shoes we wanted and the sugar water we kind of desired. And because of that, our civilization had come to frame itself as consumers and not citizens. And citizens challenge authority, citizens overthrow government, citizens take power. And that's not something a consumer would ever do. So at the base of it all, You don't want to be controlled. You're being whipped. If you're fine being whipped by shoes, I would reconsider that notion. And you need to reframe your view of yourself as a citizen of this country and of the world, and you need to create the reality you want. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Okay, so do we have any other speeches before we make a vote on this topic? Okay, come on up. Okay.
I actually don't like stages, but I feel like a lot of the problem that we have, because this is a conversation if it's good or bad, is that we're actually bipartisan. We're talking about everything's largely automated. If we want to truly emerge on property, I feel like we need to converge all the points into a whole expression where we're not identifying yes or no, but having more parameters of how to honor the whole expression. So one thing that I would believe as kind of like independent position of honoring both sides is that I would say having a board of ethics is vital for different corporate structures to vet this technology, because a lot of our automated positioning is that we're living in an extraction-based economy, so that's translating into our technology, and it's extracting information for the benefit of one instead of actually kind of reverse engineering that and figuring how to honor the whole.
It's a question for you.
Yeah, here. I know, this is like the last ones, you guys.
Oh my
These are the last ones. Ariel, you want to come up? The last speech of the night, Ariel.
It's gonna be like super cloudy.
Well, okay, come on. So after Ariel speaks, we're gonna do a vote, and we want to thank you for coming out tonight. We want to invite you to come the final Sunday of next month to talk about different ways that this event, could exist online or in some other ways. So we can. I like what the last speaker talked about. It's like this really isn't a duality. There's a full discussion that's wrapping around this, and until we get all those points out, we're going to be kind of confused. So come on up, Ariel. Thanks, Ariel. Ariel's probably come to more YOFUs than anyone else, and we love having you.
Okay, so I'm going to be the person that is the spiritual observer, confused cloud person. I am not somebody that is involved in any of these technologies, so I'm just going to paint a picture. I like to write for fun. I'm an artist. So from what I can see from these meetings, I see us evolving into a society where our personality becomes something that can be bought, and that can allow you to succeed in a hierarchy society. So let's say you want to be more dominant in the workplace. This can be bought. You can provide that. Is this a place that we want to live? Is that something you guys see yourself? Is that a place you guys want to live in? Let's say I want to be more beautiful. I can buy that now, yeah. But what if I want to transfer my mind into another body? Is that? I mean, yeah, it's like a movie. But I see this is like becoming our reality. We're like going to be like World of Warcraft soon, and you're like buying how powerful you can be. You can have superpowers. You can, I mean, it's insane. I'm like a millennial, and I'm watching my peers just evolve into these, like, they don't even know what they're evolving into. It's strange. Like, I don't know what parts of my personality come from influence and what part of me comes from my environment or my own choices. Like, even now, I'm like, am I so enthusiastic about the future? Is it because I've been influenced this way? Do I want to look the way I want to look? Is it because I've been influenced this way? Like, yeah, I have blue hair because, this used to be a thing where it's like, yeah, wear costumes, but and no one else is, but it's just like, I'm trying to own my individuality here. I'm trying to own it as hard as I can, but then a part of me wants to just throw myself into this ocean of technology and say, yes, Take me. I want to be dominant. I want to be beautiful. I want to create what's in my mind as a writer. I want it out here. I want to be rich. How do I do that? Can I buy that? Can I buy traits to be rich? Is that possible in the future? If so, would you go for it? Would you? I want an answer, would you? If you could, like, buy traits to be rich for, like, $1 million, would you go for it with everything that you have? Like, if it would guarantee you a higher place in society, into, you know, a group of influence, would you buy your way into that? If they could hack your mind and make you that person, would you do it? I'm stuck in between because I'm like, heck yeah, but then I'm like, no, because then they could, like, make me do other things. So I don't know, I'm in between. Like I said, I'm the spiritual observer, clouded, confused person. But anyway, I don't know.
Thank you, Ariel. I think that's a great way to end this because I know that we all have been influenced by these apps. We all have these desires to do something and be something and to grow in certain directions and have different things. So we are incredibly susceptible to these apps. So it's a very interesting time we're living in, and I'm glad we're having this discussion. I'm glad you guys came out tonight. Can I have a show of hands? Oh, August, come up for the vote. Let's count the vote.
Wait a second, don't we have like three areas now? Because it seems like we have a third choice in here now.
Well,
which I guess is against what you're doing. But
oh, well, the options are either mind control is good for this, and as Ramsey said, like, is this going to save us from ourselves? Is it going to prevent us from dying of diabetes? You know, are we going to use this to evolve in a way that's beautiful? Or are we going to have someone railroad us into something we're not comfortable with? Like, is this good? You know, we want to go forward with this? Or do we want to say, wait a minute, right? Wait a minute is no, let's do this is yes. I mean, it is a lot of interesting ideas on both sides, and this is going to be a close vote, I think, because it's very, very confusing. Okay, so Howie, can you check how many, if there's votes on the things on the outside? Okay, so everybody in favor of mind control being good for you, raise your hand.
What if you don't know?
I spoke in that way, so I'm going to do it. So, okay, so we have 4. Okay, anybody think that mind control is bad for you? Raise your hand. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4. What do we have? 1 plus is the balance. Okay, so, okay, wait. Everybody not in favor of mind control, raise your hand again. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it's against. So Yofu has never passed a resolution, which is interesting because we've gotten down into the deep of it, which is great. So yeah. Carrie, if you're watching there with the baby on your lap, we love you. We miss you tonight. And thanks for helping form the first 5 months of this project. And we hope that we find our ground with this, and we hope that we can service the greater good.
Oh my god, I'm making it.
you're talking about it, I'm like, yeah, I'm aware of it. You know, my email. But, you know,
Be a little message.
so how are you helping? I mean, it is like
we sell an AI service they use to become local sources. So I just sit down and
so would you come and I know, that's why I'm asking.
We were looked into just a little bit.
I was like, oh, okay.
Because we're building an e-commerce in ERP. So we're like,
then I put you in touch with folks
that's part of it. Yeah, but we're like, no, we're organizing.
Because being conscious capitalism
It's got to be something.
And we cared about advertising. That was
I hadn't thought about it as prescriptive.
yeah, that's what I thought was really interesting. Well, I always thought of like, yeah, I can help AI do the things I don't like doing. That would be very good. I would love to do AI.
We can do it. Just do it. All these types of events are just in our Yes. So my email is hello@savenet.org. Just hello, C-E-N, like let me know.
I was like, oh, that's how you're going to get it. I get it. Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be good.
That was so great.
Yeah.